What happens when a man who has everything forgets where he came from? Morgan Thorne, a self-made CEO, stood on top of the world. He had $1 billion company, the respect of the city, and a quiet, supportive wife, Amelia, whom he treated as little more than a background decoration. At his own gala, he mocked her simplicity, her lack of ambition, unaware that her silence wasn't weakness. It was a cage. He was about to find out that his quiet wife's family wasn't just wealthy. They were the ones who owned the cage. This is the story of how one arrogant man's greatest triumph became his public execution, all because he underestimated the woman beside him. The penthouse smelled of glass cleaner and old money. A sterile combination that Amelia Thorne had never gotten used to. From their 80th floor apartment overlooking Central Park, New York, was a silent, glittering map. It was a view that cost more than most countries' GDP, and tonight it felt like a prison. Amelia was adjusting the clasp on a simple pearl necklace. The pearls were real, of course. They had belonged to her grandmother. They were understated, glowing with a soft, creamy luster against the dark navy silk of her Brunello Cucinelli gown. It was a dress that cost $12,000, but it was designed to look like it cost nothing at all. That was the way Amelia preferred it. Quiet, unassuming. "Are you still wearing that?" Morgan Thorne's voice boomed from the dressing room. He didn't enter her space. He projected into it. He emerged, already fastening the buttons on a ludicrously flashy Tom Ford blazer. It was velvet with a pattern that seemed to shimmer with its own importance. "It's a gala, Amelia, not a funeral," he said, adjusting his $100,000 Richard Mille watch. "My company is receiving the Pinnacle Award. I'm the man of the hour. Can you at least look like you're married to the man of the hour and not the help?" Amelia's fingers paused on the pearl. She met his eyes in the reflection of the floor-to-ceiling window. He was handsome, she supposed. 10 years ago he had been electric. When she first met him, he was just Morgan, a brilliant, hungry engineer with a blueprint and a dream. She had fallen in love with that hunger, that raw ambition. She had believed in him. Now that hunger had been satiated, replaced by a gluttonous, swaggering arrogance. He was CEO Morgan Thorne, the titan of Thorne Dynamics, a man who believed his own press releases. "I like this dress, Morgan," she said, her voice soft as always. "You like it?" He scoffed, walking over to the bar to pour himself a 2-finger measure of Macallan 30. "It's plain. It's beige. Just like everything you choose. Look at Isabella Vance. She'll be there tonight. She'll be wearing Versace or Schiaparelli. She'll look like she belongs." Amelia's stomach tightened. Isabella Vance, the new COO of his company. A woman with shark's eyes and a resume as sharp as her stilettos. Amelia had seen the way Morgan looked at Isabella. She had seen the late-night texts he thought he was hiding the board meetings in Zurich. "I don't want to look like Isabella," Amelia said, turning to face him. "I want to look like myself." Morgan drained the scotch in one gulp and slammed the crystal tumbler down. "That's the problem, isn't it? Yourself is boring. Yourself is this quiet, mousy little thing that makes people wonder how I ended up with you. You're dragging me down, Amelia. Tonight, just smile. Stand next to me. Look impressed, and don't talk to the reporters. You always manage to say the wrong, simple-minded thing." He didn't wait for a reply. He grabbed his phone. "The car is downstairs. Chloe is already there." Chloe, his 25-year-old executive assistant, who also Amelia knew booked his business trips with Isabella. The entire company was a nest of his enablers. Amelia took a deep breath, the scent of expensive whiskey and his even more expensive cologne stinging her nostrils. She remembered a tiny apartment in Brooklyn 10 years ago. They were eating cheap pizza on the floor, mapping out his business plan on a napkin. He had kissed her and said, "It's you and me against the world, Ames. You're the only one who gets me." She had funded him, not with her family's money. Not yet. She had liquidated a small trust her grandmother left her, a starter fund of $1 million. She gave it to him, telling him it was an inheritance she'd saved. He'd been so grateful. He'd called her his angel investor. Now he called her beige. She picked up her simple clutch. He was right about one thing. Tonight was his night, his greatest triumph, and she knew with a certainty that settled in her bones like ice that it would also be his last. She had been patient. She had been quiet. She had given him every chance to be the man she married. But that man was dead. "I'm ready," she said, her voice betraying nothing. As she walked past him, he grabbed her wrist, his grip too tight. "And Amelia. That necklace, it's quaint, but it makes you look like your grandmother. Try to live in this century. I'm building the future, and you're stuck in the past." He let her go, wiping his hand on his pants, as if her skin had left a residue. Amelia simply looked at the red mark on her wrist, then at the pearls. Her grandmother, she thought, had owned shipping lines. She had negotiated trade deals that built nations, and she had warned Amelia about men like Morgan. "You're right, Morgan," she said, walking into the elevator. "The past has a way of catching up." He didn't hear her. He was already on the phone, laughing at something Chloe said. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was unrecognizable. Thorne Dynamics had rented out the entire Temple of Dender wing for the Pinnacle Award gala. The ancient temple was bathed in electric blue light, the company's logo projected onto the reflecting pool. It was the definition of hubris, a tech company's logo plastered over 2 millennia of history. Morgan was in his element. He strode into the room like a Roman emperor, his hand not in Amelia's, but on the small of her back, guiding her like livestock. Cameras flashed. Reporters, mostly from fawning business journals he'd courted, shouted his name. "Mr. Thorne, a word about the quantum leap, AI. Morgan over here. How does it feel to be the king of New York?" He lapped it up, giving sound bites about disruption and legacy. Amelia stood beside him, her smile a perfect polished mask. She was the ideal prop, the silent, adoring wife. He would occasionally pat her hand, a gesture of patronizing ownership. "She's my rock," he told a reporter from Forbes. "Couldn't do it without her. Simple, steady support." As soon as the main scrum of reporters dissipated, he dropped the act. "Go get us some champagne," he ordered, not looking at her, his eyes already scanning the room for more important people. Amelia felt the familiar sting of humiliation. She was the wife of the guest of honor, being sent for drinks like an intern. She navigated the crowd, a sea of sequins, black ties, and avaricious smiles. She saw Page Six's most notorious columnist, Penelope Hayes, watching her, a predatory glint in her eye. Amelia turned away, making her way to the bar. And then she saw her, Isabella Vance. She was not wearing Versace. She was wearing a custom blood-red Alexander McQueen gown that looked as if it had been sculpted from molten glass. It was audacious, stunning, and screamed for attention. She was standing with a circle of billionaires, men in their 60s and 70s, all of them leaning in, captivated. Morgan saw her at the same moment. He left the group he was talking to mid-sentence and strode over to Isabella. Amelia watched frozen from across the room. He didn't just greet her. He embraced her. His hand slid down the exposed, corseted back of her dress, lingering far too long, far too low. He kissed her cheek, but his lips brushed her ear as he whispered something. Isabella threw her head back and laughed a sound like breaking champagne flutes. She put her hand on his chest, her red nails a stark contrast to his white shirt. They were not hiding. They were gloating. This was the true reveal. This wasn't just an affair. It was a succession. He was presenting his new queen to the court, while the old one was sent to fetch drinks. Amelia felt a cold, sharp anger, unlike anything she'd felt before. It wasn't the hot, messy rage of jealousy. It was the precise, cold fury of a CEO watching an asset being mismanaged. An asset she owned. He's a fool, isn't he? Amelia turned. A man in his late 60s with kind eyes and an impeccably tailored Keaton suit was standing beside her at the bar. He had a slight Dutch accent. I beg your pardon, Amelia said, composing herself. Morgan Thorne, the man said, accepting a glass of seltzer from the bartender. He's a fool. He thinks this... He motioned to the blue lights, the noise, the obsequious crowds, is power. This is just noise. Power is quiet. The way you are. Amelia studied him. He looked vaguely familiar. Have we met? We have not. But I know of you, or rather I know of your family. The Van Houtens. Amelia's blood went cold. No one in New York knew her family name. It was the one thing she had guarded with absolute secrecy. Her father, Constantine Van Houten, was the head of Ethelred Global, a private equity and technology firm so large it didn't bother with stock markets. They didn't build companies. They bought the countries those companies operated in. They were the definition of quiet power. You have me at a disadvantage, Amelia said, her voice guarded. The man smiled. My apologies. My name is Peter Janssen. I sit on the board of Ethelred. Amelia's mask slipped. Peter, Uncle Peter, she said, using the familiar Dutch term. He laughed. In the flesh. Your father sends his regards. He was concerned. When he heard Thorne Dynamics was being honored, he grew worried about the exposure. Your father hates exposure. He finds it vulgar. What are you doing here? Amelia whispered, as the crowd around them roared with laughter at some unseen joke. Observing. We have significant concerns about Mr. Thorne's recent acquisitions. He's been moving money, a lot of money, into ventures that seem fictitious. We were running a quiet audit, but then your father told me to stand by. He said you would give the signal when you were ready. Amelia looked back across the room. Morgan was now holding Isabella's hand. He had pulled her onto a small, roped-off dais by the temple, showing her the view, his arm wrapped tightly around her waist. They were posing for a Vogue photographer. Amelia turned back to Peter Janssen. She took a sip of the champagne she had finally been handed. It tasted like ash. Tell my father, she said, her voice so low, Peter had to lean in. The signal is given. I'm done. Send the team. Send Mr. Locke. Peter's kind eyes hardened instantly. The friendly uncle was gone, replaced by the Ethelred board member. They are on a plane from Geneva. They will land at Teterboro at 6 a.m. Mr. Locke has the files. All of them. Thank you, Peter. It is a shame, Amelia, he said, patting her hand. You truly loved him. Yes, Amelia said, watching her husband kiss his mistress on the cheek for the camera. I did. But he killed the man I loved. The man left standing is just a liability. She turned and began walking back toward her husband, the prop wife returning to her post. But the mask was no longer one of weakness. It was one of war. The clinking of glasses ceased. A spotlight as harsh and white as an interrogation lamp found the stage. The president of the New York Business Council, a man Amelia knew Morgan despised, but had paid handsomely for this honor, was at the podium. "And now," the president bellowed, "a man who needs no introduction, a man who truly represents the future of American innovation. He took a simple idea, and with nothing but grit, determination, and his own sheer genius, built a global empire. The titan of tech, the genius of Thorne Dynamics. My friend Morgan Thorne." The applause was thunderous. Morgan stood up, buttoning his velvet jacket. He looked at Isabella, who blew him a small conspiratorial kiss. Then, as an afterthought, he glanced at Amelia, still standing beside his chair. He gave her a sharp nod, a silent command. "Stand up. Applaud for me." Amelia rose to her feet, her hands moving together in a slow, measured clap. Her face was a perfect portrait of serene, wifely pride. Inside, she was a block of Antarctic ice. Morgan bounded onto the stage, soaking in the adulation. He shook the president's hand, grabbed the heavy crystal award, and held it aloft like a conquering hero. The cameras flashed, capturing the image of triumph he had so desperately craved. Thank you," he said, his voice aided by a microphone filling the ancient hall. "Wow, what a night." He set the award down, leaning into the podium with a practiced, casual arrogance. "They say I'm a self-made man," he began, his voice dripping with false humility. "And they're right." Amelia watched clinically. She saw Peter Janssen across the room, by the main exit, watching Morgan like an entomologist studies a particularly distasteful insect. "I didn't come from money," Morgan continued, a lie he'd told so often, he now believed it. He came from a perfectly comfortable upper-middle-class family in Connecticut. "I didn't have a trust fund. I didn't have a family name to open doors for me." He paused for effect, letting the lie settle over the crowd of trust fund babies and heirs, all of whom nodded in solemn agreement. "I built Thorne Dynamics from nothing. From an idea on a napkin, Amelia's napkin in her apartment paid for by her trust. I did it with sweat. I did it with 100-hour work weeks. I did it by being smarter and working harder than everyone else in this room." A few nervous titters. He had insulted them, but he was the man with the award, so it was acceptable. "People told me my quantum leap AI was impossible. They said it couldn't be done, but I don't believe in impossible. I eat impossible for breakfast." The applause was weaker this time. His ego was beginning to choke the room. "But," he said, softening his tone, "no man is an island. You need a team of killers, a team that sees your vision. People like my brilliant COO, Isabella Vance." He pointed to her. Isabella stood, bathing in the secondary spotlight. She was the future Mrs. Thorne, and everyone in the room suddenly understood. The gossip was true. Amelia felt the lens of Penelope Hayes' camera swing from Isabella back to her, zooming in, searching for the crack for the tear. Amelia gave her nothing. She just smiled the same placid, empty smile. "And," Morgan said, turning back to the podium, his voice taking on a new condescending tone, "you also need support at home. Someone to handle the other things. The simple things." The room went quiet. This was not on the prompter. "My wife Amelia is here tonight." He gestured vaguely in her direction. The spotlight swung, catching her. Amelia was blinded, but she did not flinch. She was alone on an island of light, every eye in the room on her. "Now, Amelia, she doesn't understand this world," Morgan said, a small, chuckling laugh in his voice. "She wouldn't know a stock option from a grocery coupon. Her world is small, simple. She's a quiet soul." Amelia could hear the whispers. How embarrassing. Did he really just say that she looks like a ghost? Morgan was on a roll high on his own power, emboldened by the award and the presence of his mistress. He was swatting away his past. "She once asked me why I work so hard. She said, 'Morgan, why can't we just, I don't know, open a small bookstore in Vermont?'" He laughed, and a few sycophants in the front row laughed with him. "A bookstore," he boomed. "I'm here building the future, and she's worried about paperbacks." He looked directly at Amelia, the spotlight creating a tunnel between them. He was not thanking her. He was dismissing her. He was publicly, brutally, and unequivocally telling her and the world that she was nothing. "But I want to thank her," he said, the final poisoned cherry on top. "I want to thank her for her simple presence, for reminding me that not everyone is built for the fight. Not everyone is built to matter. Her quiet support is a comfort, like a nice warm blanket, or a pet, maybe." The silence in the room was now deafening. Even his supporters were cringing. This wasn't a speech. It was a character assassination. Morgan, finally sensing he'd gone too far, tried to recover. "So, here's to Thorne Dynamics. Here's to the future." He raised his award. The applause was scattered, pathetic. Amelia Thorne stood in the spotlight, her face unreadable. The smile had not wavered, but her eyes, had anyone been close enough to see, them were no longer the eyes of a wife. They were the eyes of a creditor. She did not wait for the spotlight to move. She did not wait for the music to swell. In the ringing silence of her husband's failed ovation, Amelia Thorne turned. She did not look at him. She did not look at Isabella. She simply walked. She walked out from the table, her steps silent on the thick carpet. She walked past the table of fawning journalists, past the shocked board members, past her husband's open-mouthed, furious face still trapped on stage. She walked straight toward the main exit, where Peter Janssen was holding the door. The cameras found her. The flash, flash, flash of Penelope Hayes's camera was the only sound like punctuation marks at the end of a sentence. Morgan Live microphone, still pinned to his lapel, hissed into the void. "Amelia! Amelia! What the hell do you think you're doing? Get back here." But she was gone. The heavy oak doors of the Temple of Dender wing clicked shut behind her, the sound echoing in the silent, humiliated room. Morgan Thorne, man of the hour, was left alone on stage, his award in hand, exposed as a fool. Amelia did not take the limo. The chauffeur, a man who had driven her for 5 years and always treated her with a quiet kindness, looked confused as she bypassed the gleaming Bentley. "Mrs. Thorne, the car is this way." "I'm not going home tonight, Robert," she said, pressing a $100 bill into his hand. "Take the rest of the night off. I believe Mr. Thorne will be detained." She hailed a yellow cab, a move so foreign to her current life that it felt like a rebellion. "Where to, lady?" the cabbie asked, not looking back. She gave him the address. Not a hotel, not the airport, She gave him the address of a discreet, impossibly exclusive building on the Upper East Side, one that didn't appear on any maps the Ethelred consulate. It was a private residential building owned by her family's firm, reserved for visiting executives, and in this case family members in need of a fortress. Her phone began to explode. It was Morgan. One text. "Where are you? You were second. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed me." A third. "Get back here. Now. We have to do damage control." A fourth. "Isabella is furious. You ruined my night." Then the calls started. He rang and rang and rang. She watched the screen, the name Morgan, flashing with angry pulsing light. She let it ring until it went to voicemail. Voicemail 1. "Amelia, pick up the phone. I am not playing this game. You made me look like an absolute idiot. Whatever little tantrum this is, it's over. Get back to the penthouse. We will talk." She deleted it. The cab pulled up to a grey stone building with no markings, only a heavy, polished black door. Two men in dark, severe suits stepped out of the shadows before she had even paid. They were her family's security. "Welcome home, Ms. Van Houten," one of them said, opening the cab door. The name Ms. Van Houten felt like a splash of cold, clean water. She entered the lobby. It was silent, decorated with a single massive Mark Rothko painting, and nothing else. Her father's taste. Another call from Morgan. She let it go to voicemail. Voicemail 2. His voice was different. The rage was gone, replaced by a tight, controlled panic. The reporter Penelope Hayes must have published her article already. The headline was probably "Brutal Thorne's Quiet Wife Walks Out on Humiliating Speech." "Amelia, listen. I don't know what got into you. I was joking. It was just a little roast. You know, for the crowd. You're too sensitive, you're overreacting, but you're making a scene. The board is asking questions. You're making the company look unstable. You're making me look unstable. Call me. We can fix this. Just call me." She deleted it. She was shown to a suite that was larger than her first apartment with Morgan. A fire was already crackling in the hearth. On a heavy mahogany desk, a secure satellite phone was waiting. She picked it up and dialed a number from memory. It rang once. "Amelia." Her father's voice, Constantin van Houten, was calm and clear from Geneva. "Father," she said, "Peter called me. You are safe." "I am safe. I'm at the consulate." "Good. Mr. Locke and the team's plane is wheels down at Teterboro. They are refueling and will be with you in 90 minutes. They have the preliminary audit. It's worse than we thought, Amelia." "What did he do?" she asked, sinking into a leather chair that smelled of old books and power. "He didn't just borrow against your initial investment. He's been defrauding his own company. Systematically. For 2 years. He's been using Thorne Dynamics as a personal piggy bank to fund a series of personal projects with Ms. Vance. So the company is a shell." "Not yet," her father said, his voice hard. "The core technology, the quantum leap AI, is sound. Brilliant even. That's the asset. But the company's financials, they're a work of fiction. He's been cooking the books to inflate the valuation for a new round of funding. He was planning to take the new money, cash out his original shares, and leave the new investors holding an empty bag." Amelia felt sick. He wasn't just leaving me. He was leaving everyone. Yes, a true sociopath. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room. Amelia looked into the fire. He's not even the smartest man in his own marriage. a rare, dry chuckle from her father. Indeed, Mr. Locke has the full package. The wire transfers, the offshore accounts in the Caymans, the documentation of his relationship with Ms. Vance, which I am sorry to say was being funded by corporate accounts. He bought her a condominium at 15 Central Park West with R&D money. Amelia closed her eyes. The humiliation was deep, but the rage was deeper. "What is the plan?" she asked. "Locke will present two options, a quiet divorce and his silent removal, or a public crucifixion. The choice is yours, my dear. It is after all your company." "My company? Of course. Your $1 million angel investment. That was from the Van Houten Generation Trust. It came with our standard founder's clause. You are not just an investor, Amelia. You are the primary stakeholder." He just never read the fine print. He was too excited by the money. Amelia almost laughed. The ultimate irony. He'd called her simple, and he had signed his entire empire over to her before he'd even built it. Her personal phone buzzed again. A new text from Morgan. "Amelia, I'm at the penthouse. Where are you?" "This isn't funny. I've been trying to log into our joint accounts. The access is denied." "What did you do?" "Amelia, pick up the phone. My corporate card was just declined." She smiled a thin, cold smile. Mr. Locke's team was already working. The cage door was swinging shut. "Amelia." Her father's voice came over the satellite line. "I'm here, Father." "What is your decision?" "A public crucifixion," Amelia said without hesitation. He wanted the spotlight. He wanted to be the king of New York. "I'm going to make him famous." "Very good," Constantine said. "Locke will meet you at Thorne Dynamics, 9 a.m. I suggest you get some rest. Tomorrow, you become CEO." Morgan Thorne had not slept. He sat in the dark penthouse, the glittering New York skyline now mocking him. He had spent the night alternating between blind panic and narcissistic rage. He'd called his CFO. No answer. He'd called his bank. They cited a security freeze. He'd called Isabella, who had screamed at him about the Page 6 article, "Thorne's temper tantrum wife flees mistress exposed," and then hung up on him. By 8 a.m., he was a wreck, pacing the marble floors in his $5,000 suit from the night before. He was in the middle of composing a furious, threatening email to Amelia's simple middle-class parents. In Holland, he'd never met them, and she'd never corrected his assumption when his secretary, Chloe, called her voice trembling. "Mr. Thorne, you need to come in. Now." "What is it?" "What's the new crisis?" he snapped. "There are people here, in the main conference room. They said they have a 9 a.m. meeting with you, but it's not on your calendar." "What people? Get rid of them," he barked. "Sir, I don't think I can. There are 6 of them, and Mrs. Thorne is with them." Morgan froze. Amelia. She'd come crawling back. She was here to apologize, to smooth things over. A wave of relief quickly followed by anger washed over him. She would pay for this humiliation. "Right," he said, straightening his tie. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He strode into the lobby of Thorne Dynamics, his company, his empire, at 8:52 a.m. The employees stared at him, whispering. The Page 6 article was on every screen. He ignored them, marching straight to the executive floor, to the glass-walled main conference room. He threw the doors open and stopped. Amelia was there, as Chloe had said. but she was not the woman from last night. The quiet navy blue silk was gone. She was wearing a razor-sharp custom Armani pantsuit in a severe charcoal grey. Her hair was pulled back into a tight, formidable chignon. Her quaint pearls were gone, replaced by a single modern diamond pendant that he knew instinctively cost more than his car. She was standing at the head of the table, not sitting, and she was not alone. Flanking her were 6 people. They all wore the same uniform, dark, impossibly expensive suits and expressions of utter reptilian coldness. They looked, Morgan thought, with a jolt like executioners. Amelia? Morgan began, trying to summon his bravado. This little stunt is over. You've had your fun. You made your point. Now tell your friends to leave. We have a company to save. Amelia looked at him. Her eyes were empty of any emotion he recognized. "They're not my friends, Morgan," she said, her voice not soft but clear and projecting like a CEO's. "They're my lawyers." An older man with silver hair and a face that looked carved from granite stepped forward. He placed a heavy leather-bound portfolio on the table. "Mr. Thorne," the man said. His voice was a low, precise rumble. "My name is Harrison Locke of Kensington & Locke in Geneva and New York. We represent Mrs. Amelia Van Houten Thorne. Or, as you may know her, Amelia Van Houten." Morgan blinked. "Van Houten. What's that your maiden name?" "Who cares?" Mr. Locke allowed a small, cold smile to touch his lips. "Mr. Thorne, are you familiar with our client, Ethelred Global?" Morgan's blood turned to ice water. Everyone knew Ethelred. They were the shadow bank of the world, a private multi-trillion-dollar firm that bought and sold governments before breakfast. They were a myth, a boogeyman for Forbes articles. What does Ethelred have to do with this?" he stammered. "Amelia," Mr. Locke said, gesturing to her, "is Amelia Van Houten. Her father is Constantine Van Houten, the chairman and sole proprietor of Ethelred Global. Her family is Ethelred." Morgan looked from Locke to Amelia, his mind refusing to process the information. You told me your family owned a tulip farm." "A common misconception," Amelia said, her voice cutting. "My great-grandmother bred a rare tulip. The patent for that tulip was the seed money for the firm in 1888. You assumed simple. You never asked." But, Morgan was sputtering, a drowning man searching for a life raft. "Mitt Thorne." Locke continued, tapping the portfolio. "Let's get to the agenda. This is a petition for divorce." He slid one document across the table. "A divorce." Morgan laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "You'll get nothing. The prenup is ironclad. You signed it. What's mine is mine. What's yours is yours. And you, my dear, have nothing." "On the contrary," Amelia said, "I have everything." Mr. Locke slid a second document over. "This, Mr. Thorne, is the original seed funding agreement for Thorne Dynamics, the anonymous angel investment of $1 million you received 10 years ago. It was, in fact, an investment from the Van Houten Generation Trust, registered to Amelia." Locke pointed to a paragraph on page 40. "And this is the Founder's Clause you signed without reading. It stipulates that in the event of gross negligence, criminal misconduct, or a morality violation, such as, say, a very public documented affair, the primary stakeholder, Ms. Van Houten, has the right to assume majority control and voting rights of the entire company. Instantly." Morgan stared at the paper. He remembered the agreement. He'd been so desperate for the cash he'd barely glanced at it. You tricked me, he whispered. You tricked yourself, Amelia replied. You assumed I was stupid. You assumed I was poor. You built your entire life on a lie, Morgan. The lie that you were the smartest man in the room. Suddenly the conference room doors burst open. Isabella Vance marched, in her face a mask of rage. Morgan, what is going on? My corporate cards are shut off. Security won't let me into my office, and who the hell are these people? She stopped when she saw Amelia, who was now smiling. A genuine, terrifying smile. Ms. Vance. Perfect timing, Amelia said. Please join us. We were just getting to your part. Isabella Vance looked from Amelia's cold smile to Morgan's ghost white face. Her bravado faltered. She had walked into an ambush. Mr. Locke, Amelia prompted, taking a seat at the head of the table as if it were her throne. Please continue. Ms. Vance, Mr. Locke said, not even looking at her. He addressed the file. We have also filed a suit against you personally for conspiracy to commit fraud and for misappropriation of corporate funds. Fraud? Isabella shrieked, clutching her Hermes Birkin bag. That's insane. I'm the COO. I saved this company's Q3. You looted this company, a new voice said. It was one of the other lawyers, a young, sharp woman who opened a different file. We have here the wire transfer authorizations for $1.7 million approved by you, Mr. Thorne, and countersigned by you, Ms. Vance, to a shell corporation called IV Global Solutions. This shell corporation is registered in the Cayman Islands. Its sole proprietor is Isabella Vance. Isabella staggered, gripping the back of a chair. The lawyer continued, her voice a monotone dirge. This $1.7 million was diverted from the R&D budget for the Quantum Leap project. It was then used 3 days later as a down payment on a condominium at 15 Central Park West. Your condominium, Ms. Vance. Morgan stared at Isabella. You told me that was family money. Isabella's face contorted with rage. You told me to handle it. You told me you deserved a bonus for the stress. I didn't tell you to steal, Morgan roared, a cornered animal. Oh, but you did, Amelia said, her voice cutting through the argument. You just preferred not to know the details. This is... Morgan was breathing hard. This is a private matter. A disagreement between executives. You can't just take my company. Wrong, Mr. Locke said. The $1.7 million is just the beginning. The tip of the iceberg, as they say. Our forensic audit, which has been running for 6 months, has uncovered a systemic criminal enterprise. He nodded to his team. They began placing more documents on the table. Stacks and stacks of them. You, Mr. Thorne, Locke said, have been running 2 sets of books, one for your shareholders and one for yourself. You have systematically inflated your revenue reports by 40% for 3 quarters in an attempt to artificially inflate your valuation ahead of a new funding round. That's a lie, Morgan shouted. Is it? Amelia asked. You told your board you had secured a $300 million contract with the Department of Defense, but you didn't. You secured a meeting. Our team spoke with the Pentagon this morning. They were very interested to hear about your fraudulent claims. Oh, God, Morgan whispered, collapsing into a chair. This was beyond the divorce. This was prison. You see, Morgan, Amelia said, leaning forward. You thought I was a simple, quiet wife. But I'm a Van Houten. We don't just invest. We monitor. My family's firm, Ethelred, has owned the bank in the Caymans you've been using for your shell companies for over 50 years. We didn't just find your transactions, we processed them. This was the final blow, the reveal that he had never, not for 1 second, been in control. He had been a mouse in a maze, and the woman he'd mocked as a pet had been the one designing it. What do you want? Morgan finally whimpered. He looked at Amelia, his eyes wide with terror. Money. You want money, take it. Take it all. Just don't do this. Don't send me to jail. Please, Amelia Ames. I love you. Last night was a mistake. I was drunk. I was stressed. He was trying to crawl back. Isabella Vance watched him, her face a mask of pure disgust. You pathetic worm, she hissed. Quiet, Miss Vance. Mr. Locke snapped. You are in enough trouble. Amelia stood up and walked to the glass window, looking down at the city. Her city. You don't get to use that name. She said her back to him. You don't get to Ames me. You want to know what I want. She turned around. Her eyes were burning. Last night you stood on a stage and you called me simple. You called me beige. You mocked me for dreaming of a bookstore. You said I didn't matter. You and your mistress, you stood there and laughed at me. You thought you were kings. You thought you were untouchable. She walked slowly, deliberately back to the table. I don't want your money, Morgan. I have money. I don't want your apology. It's worthless. She placed her hands flat on the mahogany. I want the company. I want the penthouse. I want the legacy you thought you were building. And you will have nothing. You wanted to be a self-made man. Well, I'm unmaking you. You can't, he whispered. As of 8:00 a.m. this morning, Mr. Locke announced, acting as majority stakeholder. Ms. Van Houten called an emergency board meeting. The Ethelred board members who you didn't know were board members have voted. You, Mr. Thorne, are removed as CEO and chairman effective immediately. Ms. Vance, your position as COO is terminated also effective immediately. Both of you are under investigation by the SEC and the Southern District of New York. We have already delivered our findings to them. No, Isabella whimpered. Your career is over, Amelia said. Your condo is being seized as an asset of the company you stole from. And you, Morgan, Amelia said, your shares. They're worthless. The founder's clause you violated reverts them all to me. The prenup, it's void. It was predicated on good faith, which you violated with criminal fraud. You don't even have enough money left to pay for a lawyer to fight this. Morgan was silent. He just stared at the table, a completely broken man. Security. Amelia called out, her voice sharp. The conference room doors opened. This time, it wasn't the building's security. It was 2 uniformed NYPD officers and 2 federal agents. Morgan Thorne, Isabella Vance, one of the agents said. You're both under arrest. The scene in the hallway of Thorne Dynamics was one of silent, stunned chaos. As the officers cuffed Morgan, he finally looked at Amelia, his face a grotesque mask of confusion and betrayal. Why? He whispered as they read him his rights. 10 years, Amelia. Why was it all a lie? Amelia walked up to him close enough that only he could hear her. It wasn't a lie when I met you, she said, her voice a low, painful truth. I loved you, Morgan. I loved that brilliant, hungry man in the Brooklyn apartment. But you killed him. You let your ego and your greed kill him. The man standing here, I don't know him, and I will not mourn him. Amelia, please, he begged, as they started to pull him away. Goodbye, Morgan, she said, and turned her back. Isabella Vance was more defiant. You think you've won, she spat at Amelia as they cuffed her. You'll never be what he wanted. You're a cold, empty bitch. Amelia didn't even look at her. Mr. Locke, she said, ensure Ms. Vance's full cooperation with the authorities. She may be able to reduce her sentence by testifying against him. Isabella's face went slack with a new dawning horror. Amelia had not only destroyed them, she was now pitting them against each other. The elevator doors pinged open. A crowd of employees had gathered their phones out, recording the King of New York being led away in handcuffs. And just as the doors opened, none other than Penelope Hayes, the Page 6 columnist, stepped out, her photographer in tow. Mr. Thorne, Miss Vance. Hayes shouted, her camera flashing, capturing the ultimate image of their downfall. Is it true Ethelred Global is taking over? Is it true you're being arrested for fraud? Morgan and Isabella flinched from the lights, humiliated, broken, and exposed. The elevator doors closed. The hallway was silent. Every employee was staring at Amelia, the quiet wife, who now stood at the center of the storm. Amelia turned to the crowd. Her face was not triumphant. It was calm, serious, and in complete control. Good morning, she said, her voice projecting across the open-plan office. My name is Amelia Van Houten. As of 9:05 a.m., I am the acting CEO of this company. I know this is a shock. I know you have questions. What you just saw was the end of a long and painful investigation into gross financial mismanagement by Mr. Thorne and Ms. Vance. She looked at them, meeting their eyes. They stole from this company. They stole from you. They stole your R&D funds, they lied about your successes, and they put all of your jobs at risk. She paused, letting it sink in. That ends today. Thorne Dynamics, she continued, is at its heart a brilliant idea. The quantum leap AI is revolutionary. And you, the engineers, the designers, the support staff, you are the true value of this company, not the man who just left in handcuffs. She walked toward them, her lawyers remaining in the background. My family's firm, Ethelred Global, is assuming all financial backing. As of this moment, this company is solvent. Your paychecks are secure. Your jobs are secure. The future we were promised is real. A sigh of collective relief went through the room. But we have work to do, Amelia said, her voice hardening. We have to undo the damage. We have to rebuild the trust. I will be holding an all-hands meeting in the main auditorium at 2 p.m. I will answer every question you have. But for now, I want you to get back to work. I want you to show me the brilliant company you are underneath the lies. She nodded to Chloe, the young assistant who had been pale and trembling. Chloe, please come to the conference room. Bring me the real financials, not the ones Mr. Thorne gave the board. The real ones. Chloe, seeing a lifeline, nodded, her eyes wide. Yes, Ms. Van Houten. Right away. Amelia turned and walked back into the conference room. Mr. Locke and his team were already packing their briefcases. A clean execution, Mr. Locke, Amelia said, pouring herself a glass of water. Indeed, Ms. Van Houten, Locke replied. The SEC will handle it from here. We will, of course, manage the divorce proceedings and the asset seizure. The penthouse should be clear by this evening. Thank you, Harrison, she said. Locke paused at the door. Your father will be very proud. You are, as he said, a true Van Houten." "No," Amelia said, looking out the window at the CEO's view. "I'm just Amelia, and I'm finally building my own future." The 2 p.m. all-hands meeting was packed. The auditorium was buzzing, not with fear, but with a strange electric anticipation. Amelia walked onto the stage alone. No lawyers, no family. She wore the same charcoal suit, a symbol of new stable power. She stood at the simple podium, and the room went silent. "Thank you for coming," she began. "As I said this morning, my name is Amelia Van Houten, and I am your new CEO. And I am not going to waste your time with corporate platitudes." She looked out at the faces. "For the last 2 years, you have been working for a man who did not respect you. He respected your output, but he did not respect you. He took your genius, packaged it, and sold it as his own. And then he had the audacity to steal the profits of your labor. That era is over. Today," she said, "I have done 2 things. First, I have dissolved the office of the CEO as you knew it. All of the executives complicit in Mr. Thorne's schemes have been terminated." A wave of applause. "Second," she continued, "I have taken the $1.7 million recovered from Ms. Vance's condominium and the additional $22 million we have already recovered from Mr. Thorne's hidden accounts, and I am not putting it into an executive bonus pool. I am putting it back into this company. Effective immediately, the R&D budget for Quantum Leap is quadrupled. And, effective on your next paycheck, every single employee here, from the janitorial staff to the senior engineers, will receive a 10% bonus as hazard pay for surviving the previous administration." The room exploded. It wasn't just applause. It was a standing, roaring ovation. People were cheering, crying, hugging. Amelia let them cheer. She let the toxic energy of the last few years burn off. "But this isn't just about money," she shouted over the noise, and they quieted down. "It's about respect. This is no longer a disruptor company built on ego. We are going to be a legacy company built on integrity. We will be transparent. We will be collaborative. And we will absolutely become the global leader in our field. Because we have the talent, we have the resources, and now we have the leadership." She leaned in her voice, dropping to a confidential, serious tone. "I know what you're thinking. Who am I? I'm the quiet wife. The woman in the background. Morgan Thorne made a mistake. He thought my silence was weakness. He thought my patience was stupidity. He learned too late that a quiet person is an observant person. I have watched this company for 10 years. I know where the bodies are buried. And I know where the treasure is too." She smiled. "The treasure is you." "I have one last piece of news," she said. "The Pinnacle Award the company won last night. I have already spoken to the Business Council. We are respectfully returning it." A gasp went through the room. "That award was given based on fraudulent numbers," Amelia said, her voice like steel. "It was given to a man, not a company. We will earn our own awards. We will earn them with real numbers, real products, and real integrity. The next time we are on that stage, it will be all of us, and it will be real." She stepped back from the podium. "I'm done talking. My new office is the glass conference room on the 40th floor. No more ivory tower. My door is open. Now, let's get to work." She walked off the stage, not to the thunder of a forced ovation, but to the determined, powerful applause of a company that had just been saved. As she walked through the lobby, she saw a final karmic detail. The Page 6 article was taped to the water cooler. The headline was devastating: from king to con CEO Morgan Thorne, arrested for fraud after wife billionaire heir Amelia Van Houten stages corporate coup. The photo, the one of him and Isabella in handcuffs, was already global. Amelia walked past it without a second glance. She had a company to run, and so the reign of Morgan Thorne, built on ego and theft, collapsed in a single day. He learned the hard way that the loudest person in the room is often the most fragile, and that true power doesn't need to shout. Amelia Van Houten, the quiet wife, proved that silence is not weakness. It is the patience of a predator, the calm of a strategist. She took back her company, her name and her future, not by screaming, but by winning. The arrogant CEO who mocked his wife ended up with nothing, while the woman he called simple now runs his entire world. This story is a powerful reminder. Never ever underestimate the quiet ones. They are the ones who are always listening. What did you think of Morgan's downfall? Was it karma or was it just business? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Thank you for watching. If you loved this story of justice and karma, please show your support. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas every single week. Click that notification bell so you never miss a single story.